Get your big
This
gavel
year bid
here.
project to J. Allen.
Okay, let me
They
go home.
gave this size one.
So that's, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Let's call to order the Utility Policy Committee meeting for November 13th, 2025. Just want to make sure my volume is off. Next item on the agenda is to set the agenda. Any changes, additions, corrections?
We need action on that, Chair?
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
There's a motion by Mary Anderson and a second by Member Wheat to set the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Introductions and guests. I believe those present and online we have introduced prior year. If it's all right, we'll go ahead and continue. Item 4 is acceptance of the September 11th, 2025 draft minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
There's a motion by Member Hafner and a second by Member Kingerlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Any public comment this morning, either present, those present, or online? There's no public comment, so we will proceed to item 6, unfinished business. These are all 3 updates on the 2026 water rate construction cost system capacity fee, which this group made a recommendation in September at our last meeting to present to the City Commission. We learned this morning that that presentation will not be on the 17th of November as we thought last meeting, but it will be on at the Committee of the Whole on December 1st at 5 p.m.
And I will still be there to represent the UPC in our support of the rates.
And I'm assuming that there's no changes or anything to what the recommendation was? No updates since
That's
September?
right, yeah, there's no updates. We are working with Stantec to finalize the ordinance recommendation, so that rate recommendation will include a revised chapter 38 detail that has the rates, so all those different rate tariffs, if you will be explained within that, such as residential, multifamily, commercial, industrial, seasonal, all the different meter sizes, all that kind of stuff. It's all the fine details of the work that's just getting polished up.
So I'll leave this on the agenda until it's been adopted. Next item, any updates on the capital improvement plan or any particular projects? I had a question yesterday about how the new combined station work is going.
Yeah, sure, be happy to talk about that. All the projects are going well. The station consolidation project continues, work on that continues. We're gonna continue that work through the winter as well. Our lead service line replacement projects are continuing well. We're over 6,100 replacements, so 6,100 replacements completed as of Halloween. So that work is going very well. Next year, we plan to be in Edison again for another 1,200 lead service line replacements. We presented to the Planning Commission on November 7th, and so that's kind of a step in the process of that ultimate approval of the capital improvement plan by the City Commission. So that's moving its way through. the city commission will receive that capital improvement plan as part of their budget. So when that budget is transmitted to the commission, and then when we have those budget hearings, that capital improvement plan will be part of that.
And those hearings, did you say those are early next year? Or are they?
So I'm not unsure of the schedule right now, but I know there's usually a budget presentation in December that kind of just gives an overview of the overall budget. It's more of a work session that gives commissioners some opportunity to kind of talk through or ask questions on some items. And then there'll be formal budget hearings in January to formally adopt it.
Question, so you've done 6,100 lead service, how many more are out there?
We have system-wide approximately 10,000 services. So there's in the neighborhood of 3,900 out there. We're gonna take a 1,200 service bite out of that apple in 26 and 27 as we continue our work in Edison. And then after that, we're gonna move west and then south. So after we're done with Edison, we'll be moving into Vine. And when we're done with Vine, we'll then be moving south into Westnedge Hill, neighborhoods around Bronson Boulevard, that sort of area. So that if we continue on our schedule that we're on, we'll probably be in Bronson Boulevard last. And that will then conclude our program.
Because I assume as you move further west into Winchell, that was of the era, there were not a lot of lead services up there.
Correct, as you continue west
Yeah.
and you move into then Winchell, so you move across Oakland Drive. We already did Oakland Drive because that was done during that MDOT project. But as you move beyond Oakland Drive, then the development was at a later time when lead was no longer used.
Thank you. Any other questions? Next item is again, another update on the UPC per diem compensation to see if that is in place at this point. I think we worked through what I thought were the last details on that, getting that set up with the city. And I don't think those come to this group once it's in place and working. And I don't know how it works with my committees, if members need to submit something or.
I think so. I don't know the details of that.
I can check with staff just to make sure that we've got the items kind of ironed out. I know that following the UPC action, everything's been approved, so I think it's just a matter of process and making sure the system's working.
Perhaps there's a timesheet or something that gets submitted.
Sure.
Okay. All right, and then on to 7, the new business, the water policies review, and there were 2 items. There are 2 items on the agenda today, and this is down for discussion. Actually, I think we're looking for a recommendation. First is the water shut-off public health waiver policy, and the water leak adjustment policy. And we can handle these individually, I think. Water shut-off public health policy, health waiver policy first.
So, James, that policy, is that like, in case COVID happens, we can do this?
So I'll talk on the public health waiver policy first. So this policy was drafted by staff to really focus on commercial and so it'd be commercial, institutional, and multifamily accounts. So these are different categories of accounts where the folks that are living in those locations are not directly connected to bill payment. So there's a say a commercial, let's say you live in an apartment complex, you pay your rent, and that apartment complex pays the water bill. We've come across some rather unfortunate circumstances where folks are paying rent, but the owner of that establishment is not paying the water bill. And so, by ordinance, we're required to shut off the water for lack of payment. And this is essentially a gap in our programs that provide water affordability for customers. So the customer that needs the water affordability assistance isn't connected to us. So those individual customers, say apartment dwellers that are paying rent, they may qualify for a program. We can't, they're not the business owner. And so this is really focused on understanding that there would be a public health concern if we shut off water to, say, 300 people in an apartment who now can't flush their toilets or, have water for basic hygiene, and that they have no way to come and seek assistance. Now, with our residential customers that experience a water shutoff, we've got programs in place to help them. So if we shut off a customer that is without water, that customer can come to us. We've got programs to help them that are income-based, and we've got programs that are outside of income-based. So we've have full confidence that we can provide help and assistance to customers who are on the named account. So we can name and work with that customer. With the commercial, multifamily, and institutional accounts, the folks that are experiencing the water shutoff have no access. So if somebody living in an apartment can't write us a check for $20,000 to, cover for the whole unit, that's something that's a much bigger problem. That's a problem where a for-profit company has decided that they're not gonna pay their bills. And so with us, we've got a really challenge on our hands in that we've got to follow the ordinance and we've got to shut the water off, but then we can't put all these people at risk. So what this policy does is it utilizes the tax lien process within the ordinance, so it would roll that to taxes, but preserves that water being onto those customers. So it makes sure that we provide water for the customers that really need to have it for the public health concern of that, but then it kind of goes through the process to roll that arrears directly onto the tax rolls.
How frequent is that occurring?
My experience, I'm limited. I've been with the department for approximately 12 years. I've seen this one time. And the time that happened this summer, we followed process and our policy, which is to shut the water off. We were then contacted by both the health department and Eagle with a request to turn the water back on. We worked through that with staff, we worked through that with the city attorney's office, and we came to the decision that we would turn the water back on to support public health, and that we needed to then, roll the taxes. So this policy was really kind of written through our experience in that process, and then also establishes and gives staff those tools so that we can kind of handle this in stride, and we can basically, following this new proposed policy, not shut that water off. So we can identify that we've got a situation at a commercial or institutional or multifamily account. This is a circumstance which is very critical, and that gives staff kind of the tools to work through a process and a policy that's compliant with ordinance and that preserves and protects public health at the same time.
Just from a legal standpoint, it sounds like you mentioned that briefly, but this is, your legal department has indicated that this is enforceable as a lien?
Correct. So our legal department, and I'm not an attorney, so I can kind of answer that yes, the attorney approved the policy as written. There was a lot of work to get it to that point. And it's also compliant with Chapter 38, so it's compliant with the water ordinance, and it's compliant with the steps that we would have to do to roll it over to taxes for a tax lien.
Yeah, just, and, you know, if they go bankrupt and then they start handing out money,
Sure.
how far back in line are you?
We're probably somewhere near the back, and there's we understand there's a whole lot of protections in place, including water shutoff, to, you know, prevent that. There's, you know, ultimately, there's no backstop except for the system. The system will eat that expense ultimately, and that's why we have water shutoffs, that's why we have tax liens. But in some sort of ultimate bankruptcy consideration, there is the risk that there could be a loss on any account, even an account that's shut off, could eventually result in some sort of write-off.
But that risk is an acceptable risk, looking at the alternative, which is you're putting people out of water that have no way to control that.
Correct. I would also add to that you're putting a very population-dense group of people, 300, 400 people in an apartment complex. That becomes an immediate and serious public health risk because of the concentration of people all in a small area.
Yeah, quick question, James. Now, you say this is just for multifamily. What about single-family residences that are not owned by, they're not non-PRE? Let's say they're renting there. Does that go for them as well, or does that?
So it's all based on whose name is on the account. We've got most rentals that we have, the property owner can make a decision to put that water bill in their name if they want to, or it can be in the customer's name. So if we had a scenario where a parcel was owned by the tax owner ID and that the water bill wasn't paid, and it resulted in a shut-off scenario, then.
So I can understand that then.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
And I think it's highly likely you would get paid. I think you're up the food chain as far as when you put a lien on a piece of property, it's very likely you're gonna get paid, unless it's like some situation where it becomes
Foreclosures.
I don't know what you would call it, like
Like foreclosure or something like
yeah,
that.
a foreclosure. It really doesn't matter because the bank will get it, they gotta pay it. You
Or
know,
tax foreclosure, I don't know.
Right, so it's very likely you'll get paid. So I think it's a very reasonable approach, especially considering when you got multiple people involved and somebody doesn't pay the water bill.
Plus, I think if a for-profit landlord is at the point where they're not paying water, you're probably not gonna be long before that goes out of business anyway, so the risk there is probably low.
Sure.
Set a timeline for how far in arrears they need to be before you consider putting it on the tax roll for collection.
So the policy deals with that timeline, essentially, if the water shut off, on a monthly account, if we're to the point where there's a water shut off, we've already gone through the past due notice and the shut off notice, and now we're rolling trucks, so to speak, we're dispatching a crew. That's where then it triggers these actions for the Public Services Director to consult with the Kalamazoo County Director of Public Health, and then, we start to ask some questions of, is this gonna endanger health, and what action should be taken. At that point, we're kind of making a determination that we're not doing the shut off, and so we're gonna kind of skip shut off and go right to tax lien. So when this policy is kind of actioned, that arrears amount that's gonna move to taxes. There is a process to get that off. That's not saying that's putting it in a tax lien. That's saying that we're acknowledging that that action, which is the shut off, that kind of creates a sense of urgency for that account, is no longer there. So we need to proceed right to rolling the taxes.
Is there a motion to recommend this policy to the city commission? That's my understanding, is it goes from here to the city commission?
So with this policy is just departmental. This
Oh,
doesn't go
okay.
to city commission. Your other policy that's next will go to city commission.
Okay. So for this, are you looking for a recommendation?
I think we're just looking for a comment,
Okay.
broad support, if there's any,
So consensus in
yeah,
support of
just
this?
overall consensus.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And the next policy we're looking at is the water leak adjustment policy.
James, is this policy like new? What, in the past, what would have happened with the leak?
So some explanation for this policy. This policy, I would say, has been in practice for a number of years where if there's a leak, and perhaps I'll provide some history first, there are a number of many accounts where there's a meter out in the yard in a what we call a meter box or a Ford box, and then from that meter location, there's an underground pipe, a service line, but this is private because our responsibility, city system responsibility is to the meter. There's a private side line that goes then underground to a house. There's many of those all throughout the system. Those have leaks from time to time, and when they do, the meter runs, and folks might not be aware of it because it's out in the yard. So the ordinance has set a leak policy for those, and we've been, practicing that for many years, where, somebody gets a high bill, $10,000 water bill, and says, hey, this is, can't be right. We come out, we read the meter and go, yeah, it's right, there's gotta be like water running all over the place. And they go, oh, there's this pond in my front yard. And we go, okay, that's probably what it is, and then you gotta repair the pipe, show us that it's been repaired, and then we'll put the bill kind of back to what your average usage was. We had a few harsh winters here over the last 10 to 12 years. We've had a few occurrences where pipes would burst inside homes, and folks would be aware or not aware of it. Maybe it's not a home that's occupied all the time, and there's some high water bill that shows up. And so we've kind of taken that same process. We're to the point where we've recognized that we really need to have a policy in place that's compliant with the ordinance and that's been approved by City Commission as ordinance requires. So we're kind of taking our experience over the years, trying to incorporate a way that's very easy for staff to navigate and very easy for the public to understand. Some very key points to the policy are that it's the owners or account holders, so the water account, whose name is on that bill, it is their responsibility to notify the city if there is a leak, and it's their responsibility to kind of work through this process. The city, we can't come out and repair leaks on private plumbing. We can't identify, is there a leak? Did you fill a swimming pool? We don't know what you did with the water. That's beyond our ability to understand. And it's not our responsibility to verify that. And so if you have a leak, we've got a sample form. There's some editing that's gonna do. This is still, draft. We're gonna take some comments on it, and, we'll have this, put together finally when we bring it to the City Commission for requested action. It's really important that folks go through, there's a few ways that you don't have to hire a plumber every time. If you're aware of where the leak is, you can fix the leak. You can fill this form out and verify that you've done that leak. But the challenge is that folks may come in and say, oh, that was a high water bill, I don't want to pay it, but I had a leak. Well, where's the proof of that? Is the leak repaired? And so we've got to be able, again, this is a commodity system, and so if there was something incorrect, we need to verify that, correct it, and then, move forward.
The policy, you had mentioned that you would get a bill for like that average.
Correct.
In here is, I wonder, what does this mean if you go to, item 6.2?
Yes.
Tell me what, does that mean something different?
So, yeah, they're looking at, just kind of breaking all the details to show, it looks like item 2 is actually showing like a 50% discount on that leak amount.
Yeah.
But, also talks,
About using like the average?
yeah, so the 50%, like, so what that's doing is showing that if you're saying there's a leak, that leak has to be at least 50% more than that average. So that, what we're trying to address with the policy is that someone, let's say, irrigates the lawn, and they don't normally do that. So their bill is a little bit higher. We're not gonna call that a leak. That was a usage. The leak has to be at least 50% more than your 12-month average usage for us to consider it a leak. And then if that's the case, then we'll determine what you actually just paid with that previous 12-month usage is. So there has to be a quantifiable leak that's material, to the bill. So if you've got a average quarterly bill, water and sewer combined of, let's say $200, and you bring in a bill that's $225 and say there's a leak, this policy is not going to address that. That's de minimis and likely attributed to just variation in use patterns. If you've got, same example, if you've got a $200 average bill, quarterly bill, and you bring in a $20,000 bill, that's very clearly a leak. Something happened, and we're gonna work to resolve that and make it right with the customer and put it back to that $200 average.
So, with respect to that, I think if that's what you mean, number 2 needs to be rewritten, because I don't think that's what it says.
Yeah, I think we just gotta make sure
Because you're saying we're gonna only bill 50% of the additional usage. It
in
doesn't say that,
6.2 and 5, the second line in 5, we've gotta just make sure that we tie those accurately.
yes.
Correct, so,
In 5 is clear that that's what you're saying.
correct, because that's not our intent. If you had a $20,000 bill and you normally have a $200 bill, then we're just gonna charge you $10,000. I think that the intent is that if there is a actual leak, that we correct that.
So in the $200 example, would the next bill have to be at least $300 in order to be considered? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, and that
Okay.
is it, correct, yes.
So, question, this only applies if I come to you and say, hey, my bill's 75% more.
Correct.
With your smart meters, you've talked about how you can go to the person and say, hey, we think you have a leak. Does then
Big brother.
but then you'll tell them and then I tell you?
Correct, so part of that, that's some very good point. So part of that is where we're at currently with the smart meter program, that from the system, 46,000 accounts, we don't have that automation up and running. So, but we need a policy for everybody today, right?
Mhm.
So we've got customers that are not on smart meters yet, and we've got the smart meter overall program not fully automated. So to make sure we've got a policy that covers everybody, we want to put that responsibility back on the account holder. So, come to us if you believe that bill is a leak. Come to us if you feel that there is a leak. In the future, we would definitely like to have some automation involved, at least provide the customer with an exception report, a notice, and say, hey, you've used double the amount of water. Is there an issue? And then also put an exception report notification to staff. Now, we're dealing with 46,000 accounts from a staff perspective. And so we're not gonna be grabbing every single account and looking through it. It's more of an automated thing that we'd like to have in the future.
Yeah, clearly, it would only work with smart meters, because otherwise you don't have staff time to go through
Correct.
that. But if the smart meter clicks over that 50%, you envision then there would be a notification, hey, look, you're over 50%, and then maybe direct them to this policy?
Correct, I think, yes, some sort of automation to trigger some action.
Yeah.
We still need residents to
Do it.
contact us to make a determination of, yes, there's a leak, or no, I filled the swimming pool,
Yeah.
whatever the situation is. And then we need verifiable proof that there was a leak. So in the case of, I filled my swimming pool, but I'll just tell them it's a leak. That's not gonna work, because we need to show proof that a leak was repaired. Show us the leak, show us, an invoice from a plumber that fixed the leak. One of the steps is, having a work order from a distribution employee, distribution supervisor coming out and inspecting, where is that pipe that leaked? So we want to make sure that the leak is corrected. That's really important for us to make sure that leak is corrected. So all those actions create a need and an onus on the customer, the account holder, to take some action.
So James, back to your example of the meter box in the front yard. And it leaks between the meter and the house.
Mhm.
Is there a mechanism in place to ensure that it doesn't add to the wastewater bill?
So this policy would correct that. It would take it from the water and sewer.
Yeah, because that's the simplest. If it never got to the house, it can't get down the drain.
Yep.
Unless there's a breach in the lateral, but.
Yeah.
Seems like
I
there's,
think this makes a lot of sense. I mean, just in the fact that when somebody has a true accident or emergency, they may or may not even know about it. They go away to go visit relatives for 2 weeks, they come home and they find 3 inches of water in their basement because a pipe broke and it's been running the whole time. So they've got they don't want to get dinged twice. One is you've got a leak, and then second, now you've got a really high water bill. So I think this helps those people that truly, this was just an aberration, something broke, versus, hey, I've got a really high water bill this month, like you said, because I sprinkled my lawn for the first time. I didn't know it was gonna be that high. Can I get it cut down? Answer's, sorry, no. That was an actual use of it. And I like the idea of having the staff go out, take a look at show me the repair. That will help make sure that this is, truthfully used as well as can be.
Sure.
Or in my case personally, hiring the neighbor kid to water your lawn, when you're on vacation, you find out they left it on for like 3 days straight.
How'd your lawn look? It looked great.
You had to pay for the service and the commodity. It was very expensive.
James, does a malfunctioning toilet flapper valve constitute a leak?
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Okay.
does. That's a good point. And that's part of, some of the common causes of leaks, that folks that might not be aware that they have one, that there's no water in the basement, I don't see any wet spots anywhere. We do provide toilet dye test kits, so you can put some dye in the back of the tank, you don't flush, and you look for the dye in the front, and then that tells you that there's, a leak. Some of these, you can hear them. It sounds like water's kind of on somewhere in the bathroom. And so just a simple fix of replacing the toilet flapper valve could make a real difference in a water bill.
Big time.
This seems like an opportunity for some education in the water bills too, perhaps.
No, I think so, certainly. There's a lot of language in the water bill right now about water affordability programs. If you need assistance, call this number, and that's on the back of the bill, it's in the blue box, and we've got some messages that are gonna go on the outside of the envelope as well. This also is perhaps an opportunity to put something on there. If there's a leak, we'll think of some language that can be kind of put on the bottom. If you have a leak or experience a high bill, call this number. It's going to be 311 to talk through how this policy is actioned.
Repair the leak, number one.
Yeah, we need something that rhymes with repair the leak.
Okay, and this we are looking for a recommendation to the city commission?
Correct.
Policy.
So, a question on that is I am comfortable approving this policy in concept. There's obviously some wordsmithing that needs to be done, but I don't know that we need, as long as we don't need to see those words back here
Right.
next month. So I guess I would make a motion that we approve this policy in,
We recommend the city commission approve this policy.
in concept.
I'll support that.
There's a motion by member Wheat and a second by member Crum to recommend this policy in concept to the city commission. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. James, with the owner, is there a third party that reads meters?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
We're working through transitioning that out. So it used to be Consumers Energy.
Yes.
And then we have hired Meter that provide that
Okay.
service. And then as accounts are going into the smart meter program, that Meter contract is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Okay.
So at some point, we'll be kind of crossing over to where majority of reads are just coming in automatically.
Okay.
And we also have staff that are kind of picking up and doing reads at this point as well.
I asked that question because I was trying to see where there would be other opportunities for error in that process with the third
And
party.
that's a good conversation. There have been, even if it's staff or even the smart meters, sometimes we'll have a glitch or something like that. So there is still been occurrence of what we call errant meter reads, where some kind of high bill gets generated and that maybe the reads aren't correct. So that is a process in the policy, is to verify that the reads are correct,
Okay.
to the staff before any kind of actions taken as well. Thank you for that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, and we're on to the quarterly financial report, which is also in the packet.
So what I did is I took the revenue and expense reports provided by the city for the third quarter of the year or September, and just did the same comparisons that we've been doing every quarter for probably a couple of years now. And the first page of the financial report, it's a little hard to read because it's small. And I tried to remove kind of some of the chatter, because some things go up and some things go down. And so I put some lines to the right in yellow, trying to show the first component of here's the operations, $24.2 million, and we've spent $13.44 million. So we've spent 55% of the budget, which is very safe. There'll be accruals at the end of the year, but it seems as though we're well within our budget. And as you work your way down the page, debt service, you can see that we've basically paid out all the debt service for the year. Perhaps there's gonna be some more interest payments, but we're almost at 100% for debt service. And then as you work your way down, you can see
Peter, this is third quarter,
yes,
okay. So there's still 1 quarter of debt service payments? I'm not sure the timing, how that
yeah,
works.
so that's the key, is the debt service payments, typically when I see them, are typically they'll be the same time of the year.
Gotcha. So it might be twice a year or something?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
instead of-
principal will be twice a year,
Okay.
and the interest, or the principal will be once a year, and the interest will be twice a year. But, we're within budget, and I suspect there won't be another principal payment, and that's the big component of the debt service. And then if we take a look at the revenue, I just utilized the operating revenue. We budgeted 41.7 million, brought in 28.7, and so from a revenue perspective, we're at 66%. Theoretically, you would expect to be at 75, but there's accruals at the end of the year that likely would push that number up to put us right at 75%. And then if you take a look, the remainder of those numbers are, like the last number on the page, that's the city internal services and transferring dollars, and it's within budget, so I don't know much about it. If you turn to the next component, that's just a breakdown of where did the revenues come from. You can see what was budgeted, what's come in so far, and you can see on here there's a system capacity buy-in fee. So far this year, $635,000 in system capacity buy-in fees. And revenues are up, that's great. If you take a look at the next page, this is a comparison of the third quarter of 2024 with the third quarter of 2025. And again, I focused on the big picture total for operations. So from an operation perspective, expenses are up about $900,000 with a total of $13,440,000. Debt service, you can see, is up from the prior year. And then if you take a look at the revenue, you can see for 2024, for the third quarter, we had $25 million worth of revenue, and this year we have 26.7, which makes logical sense. I mean, the rates were raised. And the transfer thing, I just highlighted it. And
It looks like 28.7.
I'm sorry, what?
It was small, the revenue.
Yeah, 28.7.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of these things you see in here where it says like watt source protection, watt pumping project. These are all categories for if they're gonna be issuing bonds and things of that nature. So I didn't try to go into the detail. When you issue a bond, we'll see it. And the last page of the document.
One comment on this, and I find this more useful than that previous one where it's 55%.
Yeah.
Just because this is because of the time of the accruals, is it in line with what happened last year?
Yeah. So I think it's very important to look at this year versus budget. It's a little hard to do it with the city, just because there's a $200 million worth of capital in the thing. And it's kind of like, what's going on. So I try to avoid the capital and the bond issue and stuff, but from an operations perspective, what's occurring? And then from a budget and actual, and then how did we do compared to last year? And then the final component is just a summary by account, and I assign what accounts are located in this document. And I just compared them to the prior year, so you could see chemicals, slightly down. City internal charges, slightly down. Debt service, up. Supplies, slightly up. Utilities, slightly up. Wages and benefits, up about $1 million. And the capital outlay, when you compare it to the prior year, there's really no meaning to it. On the wage side, we could maybe have James take a look into this, but in 2024, I took a look at it. There's actually a negative balance in one of the wage accounts of about $500,000, which forces down 2024. And maybe it's some kind of an accounting adjustment or what have you. But that's the item that I thought, oh, that looks a little out of line with, it's up quite a bit from the prior year. And I could send that to you, James. I'm sure there's a logical reason for it, but it sticks out a bit here.
What is the approximate numerical value for a one FTE? $200,000?
It depends by what the FTE bargaining unit is, or whether that's one of our unions or MBU or something like that. Probably a fair estimate is somewhere in the $75,000 to $100,000 range.
How many people were added in 2025?
Between 24 and 25, so over a 2-year period, we added approximately 10 FTE.
Okay, so that's likely a big portion of why that's increased. So I don't know if people want James to follow up on that. I'm not interested in you digging into it, but if others are, by all means, give James some direction.
I know with the city's accounting, there are a lot of variables that go into the wages. The accounting system has, over time, changed a bit as far as how do you account for vacancies, and the fact that, even though you've got a position that's allocated in January, realistically, that person, may or may not get hired until, let's say, maybe June, in some cases.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
sometimes that gets factored into how the wages and benefits are assumed for a given year when new employees come in, and so it's a lot more than just the wage and, your health insurance, for example.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Do you need to accept it or anything, or is it just a?
I don't think we've been
Okay, great, all right.
informative and reviewed.
Thank Peter for clarifying. Pages and pages and pages and pages.
Next item is the professional services, and let's see. First, that I have on the screen is the Hefner Group invoice. The 1074.
I move approval of Hefner Group invoice number 1074.
I'll support.
motion by Mayor Anderson and a second by Member Crum to approve invoice 1074. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstention.
I move approval of Prine and Newhoff invoice number 91685.
Support.
There's a motion by Mayor Anderson and a second by Member Chamberlain to approve invoice number 91685 for Prine and Newhoff. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstention.
I move approval of Main and Meridian invoice number 00112.
Support.
There's a motion by Mary Anderson and a second by Member Rowland to approve invoice number 00112, the Main Meridian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstention. We are now at the agenda item for member, alternate, attendee, and guest comments. Start with,
Comments? John will be here at 10:30.
okay, thank you.
I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation for many of you that showed up to Director Baker's discussion yesterday on biosolids, a very important topic. And to thank publicly Director Baker for his leadership in leading these really important conversations and very productively. So appreciate that.
It's a good meeting.
I just wanted to ask Jim about how the convention center project's going, all the utilities, and then was the county not gonna tear down the old building and build a new one? Is there gonna be a lot of changes, more down? Are we gonna be able to handle it, or how much more?
Sure. The event center project's going well. Construction continues. There's work planned on that to occur all throughout the winter, so that work's going to continue.
Westnedge will be closed then?
At some point, we're going to open traffic back up on Westnedge for, I think, one lane as that big water main continues to go in. Just another continuing reminder that the city is planning to build or reconstruct the Streets for All project. So that means Kalamazoo Avenue, which is currently one-way, will be constructed into two-way. That's supposed to start in this year, in 2026. Douglas Avenue, which is one-way, will be two-way. And West Main, which is one-way, will be two-way. So all that construction is scheduled to happen this year. And so that also is right where the county is going to be building their new facility, so that we're working with the county to coordinate that construction as well. The arena is scheduling to open in the fall of 2027. So all of this work needs to be wrapped up so that folks can get in there and enjoy that new space. So there's going to be a whole lot of work happening on Kalamazoo Ave, Douglas, West Main, Westnedge Park, right around that area as we do that work. And then when that's all done, we've got Michigan Ave to work on. And then when Michigan Ave's done, we're moving over to South and Lovell. So this work downtown is going to be here with us for a number of years yet to come.
Everything on schedule, or?
Right, yeah, right now, everything is on schedule. Kalamazoo Ave, Douglas Ave, and West Main. We really wanted to get those under construction in '25. That did not happen. Part of that is that there's been some change in the White House, and some of that has delayed some of this work. But we're hopeful that we can get started on the major portion, that West Main, Douglas, and Kalamazoo Ave, this year, so that that's all under construction in 2026.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I had a question of just if the city was getting any follow-up to, the amount of participation for the insurance program that came out a few months ago. Where a company sent out some letters about, I think it was both water and sewer lines that could be insured. I didn't know if there was any follow-up or the city was not involved in that at all, but.
Sure, I can speak to that. Yes, the city is involved in that. We entered into a marketing agreement with that company. The city commission approved that marketing agreement. That insurance provides an option for customers anywhere in the system to have lateral insurance. So the sewer lateral that connects your home to the public sewer is the owner's responsibility to the property line. So that means where the right-of-way is, in the city, that's generally where the sidewalk is. From the sidewalk to that connection in the road is the system's responsibility, but that portion of that lateral in the yard is the homeowner, property owner's responsibility. Many folks don't know that. That is different from our water service line, where that meter in the basement all the way back to the water main is the system's responsibility. So there is some risk that property owners have to maintain that. We've seen some very unfortunate events where we've had failures of that lateral on the private side. Luckily, we've been able to connect folks to resources like Community Homeworks or FFE or some other type of funding source that could provide that, but those funding sources aren't always guaranteed. And so we reached out to that company that provides those warranties and that service line program, so that if there is an issue, that could be covered.
So was it only for sewer? It wasn't for water, like the case we talked about earlier?
Water is also part of it. So the major initiative of the program was for sewer, because at no point, and no home, anywhere in any of the jurisdictions does the system have responsibility for that lateral on private property. That is defined in ordinance, and that is practiced throughout the system. On water, our ordinance defines a responsibility to the point of the meter. So if that meter is in your basement, good. If that meter is out in your yard, that distance between your home and that meter is private. So depending on, most customers would find benefit for that sewer portion of that opportunity, and only the customers that have a Ford box or meter pit or a meter not in their basement would be advantaged of that water program.
And then was it popular?
We've heard some mixed reviews. We had a lot of folks that thought it was some sort of scam. That gave us an opportunity to talk through that ownership responsibility that I just related to customers. And once we made them aware of responsibility issues with the sewer line, we had a lot of customers that felt that was a good program. So overall, once we've had some more education, some more conversations, we've had a lot of support from customers.
My other comment I wanted to make is that we are, we had our first kickoff meeting about the youth sports complex, and so we're coordinating amongst a lot of jurisdictions. And again, I think that ownership piece is confusing, especially because it's different between water and sewer while we work through the contract. So we are trying to make sure that we do some planning intentionally for how we see that area and our new master plan growing. And so there might be some of the upsizing contribution and aid projects coordinated with that. They have a really, really fast track schedule, so hopefully we can do enough, not over planning for what might be built there, but there's a lot of connection points, so that will be good for future development. And then as we've been doing our sewer projects, we've been running into a lot of situations where we are crossing water mains, finding situations where there might not be the ideal number of valves when we have a T or across in the water main. So we're trying to be proactive in our next phase to look at where we might want to be doing some of those water improvement, system improvements, while we have the road ripped up, and help the reliability of this system. And I know the fire department is very interested in that as well, and maybe some extra hydrants. So I appreciate that. I've reached out to Anna Crandall already about that, and we're coordinating those things. I'm just would recommend for other people too, as you're looking at road projects or sewer projects or even water or sidewalk projects, to make sure to be thinking about all the work that can be done at once to try and save costs, but also minimize the impact to residents.
Thank you. Any comments online? Hearing none.
No.
Will?
Good.
Okay. And I have none, and 9:31, just right at an hour. We have exhausted the agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Christian,